Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Yo, what's happening, Rush Nation? We're back. What is popping? It's Thursday. It's 7:12. We're getting closer to that 7 o'clock start time, big man. How you doing? Another week's in the books. There's some news and we're going to hit some OC changes. You good? And now he's choking. That is comic gold, Rush Nation.
Yeah, you nailed the timing there. Yeah, I'm good. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, but other than that, I'm okay. Another week, as you say, in the books. Another week closer to football. And tonight, Hard Knocks is back, and who can really wait to see Aaron Rodgers be an absolute
steady. This is PC, safe for work content.
An absolute person on television. I can't wait. I can wait. I'm not watching it tonight. I'll watch it tomorrow or when I get a chance. I'll be honest. I actually think Hard Knocks is crap. I have thought this for many, many years. I think Hard Knocks has got worse every year. I actually don't think I've watched the last couple. The last one I watched was the joint LA one during COVID.
That was a long time ago.
That was beyond awful. I mean, that was so bad. Like, it made me almost not want to watch NFL football. That's how bad it was. I literally was watching this like I don't even know what I'm watching. It's just a pile of scripted crap. It's stuff no one cares about. Like, it's just rubbish. You don't learn anything watching Hard Knocks. You don't see the insights and think, you mean there is no insights. You don't get any gleam. The only things that people like Hard Knocks for is the last episode with all the cuttings. Well, that's gone this year. And they like the battles and the little pearls of wisdom. But that's all heavily edited now. So it's like, do you know what? Save yourself some time. I've definitely not sold Hard Knocks. I watched. If you've got Netflix, watch the Johnny Mansell documentary called "Untold Johnny Football." That is worth an hour and 12 minutes of your time. Let me tell you, that was brilliant. Genuinely, a phenomenal documentary about Johnny Mansell. Like, I actually forgot how good a player Johnny Mansell was. Like, in college, genuinely, from all the stuff that's happened, I genuinely forgot. I knew he won the Heisman, but I genuinely forgot how good he was until you actually watch and you're like, this kid was absolutely elite as a freshman. He was so much better than everybody else. It was ridiculous. And like, you can understand why he went in the first round despite all the issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, watch that. That's a good use of your time. But yeah, there we go. We've digressed. But yeah, other than that, all good.
You say digressed. It is back. It's Jets fans who are going to be, I guess, the majority of people watching their new QB, Mr. Aaron Rodgers, coming into the building and hopefully being the final piece to that puzzle, possibly.
I hope they got some WD-40 for his arm because they're going to need it.
Right, listen. Let's enough. Murf. Something that doesn't need WD-40 unless you use it an awful lot is the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped.
See that segue?
Now, yeah, boom ting. So as we can tell, if you're watching, we do have a banner now. We are sponsored by Manscaped and the Lawnmower 4.0. If you are watching, which I suggest you do, head over to YouTube, the like, bell, subscribe button, and you know when we're going live, because you can see Murf and I are both bearded warriors, both looking fresh and sharp, although I have a hat on, so whether my hair is or not, I'll leave that to your imaginations. And guess what? The Lawnmower 4.0 is an all-over body groomer, which means if you want to wear a vest and look good a la me, another reason to come to the video show, get yourself a 4.0, the lawnmower, trim yourself up, keep yourself looking fresh. And now, the guys at Manscaped have brought out a beard trimmer and something called the Handyman, which I think is a foil-based razor, which looks incredible, be good for the cheeks. So it's not only now just for your chest and nether regions. It is an all-over body experience at Manscaped. And this week, Murf, we've got a code. The code is 5 yard at checkout. Get you 20% off and free shipping. Is that just on the lawnmower, do we know, or is it over the entire range?
Whole site.
Well, there you go. Get yourself a lawnmower that you can just get the full experience. The beard trimmer, the lawnmower, the handyman, the creams, the body scrubber. Manscaped have upped their game. Head over there, use the code 5yard at checkout for 20% off and free shipping. Right, something that works elitely from the lawnmower over to something which apparently always seems to be broken, Murph. Marlon Mack signed with the Cardinals and is now out for the season.
Yeah, I mean, before we even had time for the ink to dry on his contract, he somehow managed to get a season-long injury. I don't know if his contract contained any guarantees because they haven't published it because it literally has not been that long. Shouldn't really make light of it. But yeah, it's a shame, you know, a player with such talent who just unfortunately, yeah, gets injuries. And I can't help but feel this is the end of his NFL career, really. He might come back from this, but I don't know. It's hard. This was a good opportunity with the amount of injuries that James Conner has. You'd like to thought that he would have been probably the backup, although Ingram might have had something to say to that. So I think, yeah, it's a real shame, especially so soon after signing. I don't know the full details as to how he got the injury, but
do you think he did it walking into the facility, like tripped over something and was like, "Oh no, I'm out"?
Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately in a NFL chat group earlier today made a football related injury joke about Callum Wilson, about how he'll never sign for Arsenal because he'll get injured in the car on the way to the medical. So could be something like that could have happened. I don't know. Maybe who knows? Like I just think unfortunately certain players just seem to get injured with any form of contact. Unfortunately, the wrong way. It's just unfortunate. It's really unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate for the Cardinals. They have to go back to RB shopping. Do they go after Kareem Hunt since no one else seems to want him? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
weird.
Gonna be an interesting time.
Yeah. Did you on Sleeper? Then you get the notifications, and then you go into it's not a player. I don't know what it's called, but it takes you to basically the group chat where everyone's spamming messages.
Yeah,
and then if you go into that, everything is just, what about Marlon Mack, regardless of content. Mm-hmm. And then when it happened, Sleeper sent out a link where you could send your regards to Marlon Mack because of how influential he is on their messages and stuff. And it's just, I thought that was quite a nice touch considering he is probably done in the NFL. You mentioned Kareem Hunt, Murph. He's been to Indianapolis and New Orleans, apparently fit and healthy, and has yet walked out of both facilities without a deal.
Yeah, I wonder if it's money. I wonder. I think you're not inviting players into the facility without at least considering giving them a deal. So for me, he's either asking for too much money, or he's asking for something that he can't have, which is a starting position because he's not going to get one. I think he signs with New Orleans. I think with this Alvin Kamara suspension, you have to look at Kareem Hunt. He's someone who has had a checkered past in the NFL. Got cut from the Chiefs after a very unsavory incident. He signed for the Browns. Was reasonably good for the Browns, but cost too much this year. So he was purely a cap casualty. So you have to look at him again. He's another one that's kind of in this last chance saloon. We're in August and he hasn't signed for a team. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is either the NFL is down on him as a player, which I think there's probably a lot of franchises that aren't interested at all. And therefore he has a reduced market, but there's clearly some teams interested in him. He's getting visits. So if he's talking himself out of a deal due to price, due to money, then he's an idiot because unfortunately, especially with New Orleans, with the Colts, I kind of get it because if Jonathan Taylor plays, he's not really getting much of a look in. Yeah. So I can understand this whole going in there, trying to get as much money as you can to not really play. But in New Orleans, he's going to play. I mean, I know they've got Jamal Williams, and I know they've got the young rookie there. But I still think Kareem Hunt probably does a job there for at least the first 3 games. And if he does well in the first 3 games, he's going to continue to get the ball. Alvin Kamara is used in a very different way to Jonathan Taylor. They'll use him more in a wide receiver. They'll need a downhill runner. It's why they signed Jamal Williams. They didn't sign Jamal Williams because Alvin Kamara was getting a suspension. They've always had a number 2 back that's a downhill runner. They've had Mark Ingram twice before. There is a role there for him to potentially do something. Maybe he's holding out for a specific team. I don't really know. I just think if you've got teams interested in you and it's August 10th and we're in preseason now, I would be thinking if I want to get another paycheck in the NFL after this one, I'd probably lower my salary demands and go to the team where I'm going to get some snaps, which is New Orleans. I can understand him not going to the Colts. I can understand that. I mean, the only reason you're going to the Colts is you think Jonathan Taylor's not playing. In that case, then you've got a whole job. You've got a whole job to win. And that's different. And maybe he's holding out for that. I don't know. It'll be interesting. But I think he signs. I think he signs somewhere. My gut would tell me probably New Orleans. But it's interesting. The free agency market on running backs. Talked about a couple of weeks ago where they had their Zoom meeting and no one's happy with the amount of money they're getting. But there's guys sitting there unemployed. Davin Cook's still unemployed. Zeke Elliott's still unemployed.
Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, Fournette's still unemployed. Kareem Hunt's still unemployed. I mean, these guys need to think about just taking a job. You know, I look at teams out there. I think Fournette probably ends up at Dallas would be my weird gut reckoning. I think that Dalvin Cook ends up probably at the Jets. If
that is horrendous.
Well, if Breece Hall's going to miss time, Aaron Rodgers isn't sitting there to play on a 6-9 team, or is that right maths? No, 6-11. I mean, they'll probably win more than 6 games, maybe like 7-9, or 7-10. I don't. Yeah, my maths is terrible today. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I think that he'll sign for the Jets. I think Kareem Hunt ends up in New Orleans. We'll see what happens. But they need to start getting this market. Zeke Elliott's the one. I don't think he gets a job.
Yeah,
I think weird. The NFL is so far down on him. I just don't see. He's not getting visits, really. He's not really. There's no real talk about Zeke Elliott right now. And for a player who doesn't miss a lot of time, he's not really been one for injuries, Zeke Elliott. He's played almost every game he's suited up for in terms of in his career. I think he's missed 1 or 2 games. He obviously missed 6 games for his suspension, which was questionable whether he should have got 6 games at all. He's not missed a lot of time. He's been a relatively healthy bloke for a running back in particular. So I am a little surprised that nobody is thinking, we'll take a punt on him. But I imagine when someone loses their lead running back, Zeke Elliott might be the first phone call and people's opinion might change. Because he might be the only one out there still.
Yeah. So moving on from running backs who haven't got jobs to college football, which apparently doesn't have a job on UK TV anymore because it's after the end of ESPN Player and TNT Sports, formerly BT Sports. It's just, there's no college game day anymore. There's no coverage. There's 1, maybe 2 games a week if we're lucky on Sky because of Notre Dame's deal with Sky. It's just college football was this whole DAZN thing with the NFL and now college football coming off of ESPN. It's just the football experience for viewing in the UK has taken a nosedive. Yeah,
I mean, I'll start off, and I'm no fan of DAZN. I cancelled my subscription. I didn't like their customer service when I was speaking to them. They cut me off, even though I'd actually paid for the service until August, and they cut me off completely. So I'm in the process of a dispute with them about that. But in terms of what is available on DAZN, that's not their fault. Their quality of service, their billables, that's all them. But in terms of what people are sitting there saying that it's DAZN's fault that there's, not the game in 40 or there's not certain features or coaches film or whatever there was, they've taken away. That's the NFL's choice. The NFL has made that choice. They're the ones that set and do the broadcasts. It's not DAZN. DAZN is effectively a partner who plays and distributes the content. They don't create the content. They don't create the edits. So what's available for them to distribute is not their decision. So, and it seems like it's an ESPN thing. So ESPN have not just cancelled ESPN Player, but they've cancelled that agreement with BT Sport. So because ESPN had College Game Day, they had the games, the SEC games, they had all these other games that were available every week. You had a choice of 3 games that you could watch every week on BT Sport last year, plus your College Game Day. So ESPN have obviously decided to pull the ranks out in the UK, which I think is an absolute shame. I don't understand it. If it was a money thing, then I get getting rid of the broadcaster but keeping the player. Like, I don't understand how the player costs them any more money because they have it in the US.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. I understand like if they pulled it from the broadcaster because it cost them money instead of making money, then I can get on board with and say, okay, it's not on BT Sport because they couldn't come to an arrangement on the money. Fine, fine. Business is business. But the ESPN Player app, I don't understand. That's not costing them a ton of money to keep maintained.
No.
Surely they have one in the US. Yes, it's a regional thing, and yes, they probably have to pay some form of regional rights. But you can't tell me they're not making that back. And if they're not, then the question sort of the loyalship of football in this country. Like, I loved ESPN Player and I loved watching college football on demand. Games exciting. It's going to be a real blow to not have games to watch and also not be able to really watch prospects coming through.
Yeah.
Unless we, dialing the tapes on YouTube. Like and YouTube do have some offerings. I think their Pac-12 is on there, is on YouTube. So I think you can watch Pac-12 games on YouTube legally. And there's, I'm sure, some illegal sources you can watch games and procure from. And I think, to be honest, with the way that DAZN have handled the NFL, I think you'll find a lot of people will consume college football and NFL content illegally this year because they don't want to deal with DAZN and they want to have that choice of viewing. And that's such a shame because there's a lot of people that wouldn't make that decision. They would happily pay for the content if it was going to a provider they trusted and had the content they wanted. So I don't know. I think it's a shame. I do think that there's going to be the thing is, do they care about the backlash? I think that's and how noisy is the backlash going to be? Like, for people at DAZN don't care. They made that abundantly clear they don't care. But it's, do the NFL care enough to want to try and fix this and do college football? And it's weird because it's come at a time when they're sending teams to Ireland every year.
Yeah,
they're sending teams to Ireland every year, and now they're cutting all the viewer access that was available. I don't know. I think it's a shame, but
yeah, it is. It feels like, to me, the whole DAZN situation was just, I don't know how that came about with Game Pass ending up over there, whether it was a bidding war thing, sort of where they just bid the most to host the Game Pass thing, and then the NFL decided what they could and couldn't show. But
I think it's a game. I think Game Pass won it out. I think the cost to run mixed in with the issues they were having, mixed in with probably, you got to remember that. I mean, I don't know if DAZN have a European data center, but the NFL have struggled with that. And maybe it could be something as simple as a data privacy thing, which they've messed up royally, by the way, with this transaction. But that's a different story. I'm not going to get into data privacy breaches by the NFL or DAZN here, but there are some severe ones that someone, if they want to, can take them to court. But I'll leave it for another day. It's a shame. I hope that the proof being the pudding. If DAZN's numbers take a tank, and the NFL see that. In fact, do NFL even care? Because they're getting paid by DAZN now instead of directly. So do they even care? Probably not. If people think they're going to vote with their feet, they're probably even making more or close to the same, and they're not taking the risk of the subscriber numbers. So, real shame. Loved. One of the things I always talked about people for years was with the NFL Game Pass app was it was the ability for you to choose what you wanted to watch. Yes, the blackout was annoying, but whatever. It was one game a week or 2 games. It was 2 games a week. For 24 hours, it was annoying, but you lived with it. But I love the fact. I always thought that the Premier League should copy what Game Pass do, but I guess that's not an option anymore.
Yeah, we I completely forgot what I was going to say then. Mr. Bezos, I know you are listening right now because you are a huge 5 Yard fan. This is an opportunity for you to put your hand in your, well, I would say deep pockets, but even that chasm doesn't exist in the size of your wealth, and just buy the Game Pass thing from NFL and buy college football rights from ESPN and do one huge thing on Amazon and make even more money. Just seems like a no-brainer. Well,
I think Amazon produce amazing content, and even their rights to the Premier League. I think their Premier League coverage is better than Sky's. I think they produce the best Premier League coverage around. It's a shame they only have as few games as they do. So I'd love Amazon to buy it because they put not just money and resource into it, but they make an excellent product. You've seen that from all the documentaries and all the sports programs that they've made. So I would love that would solve all the world's problems for me.
Well, there you are, Mr. Bezos. You know we're both on board. Just pointing out, Rush Nation, this segment is not sponsored by Amazon. However, if you would like to sponsor us, Amazon, we are open to that, and other streaming services are available. Right, Murph, let's talk some OC changes. It's taken us, how long are we in, 20 minutes an hour? It's taken us nearly 3 hours to get to this point, which should have been about 40 minutes. However, it is the off-season. Let's go for it. Let's talk some OC changes. Start in Dallas. Changing from Kellen Moore to Brian Schottenheimer. It's internal, but it was an OC at the Jets, Rams, and the Seahawks, so knows how to run an offense. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, I guess just before I get into that, I want to talk about why offensive coordinator changes are really important. It's actually a massively underlooked piece of fantasy football advice here. We just always assume in continuity, right? We assume that, and we base on purely the value of the players. So you look at offenses and you think like the Chargers last year, the offense was really, the offense is stacked. It's got everything you'd imagine. It's got Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And it's got all these pieces and Gerald Everett. And you think, oh, that offense is going to be absolutely amazing. It's completely loaded. And it wasn't. It was okay. Like it wasn't terrible by any, but it also certainly wasn't lights out. And it certainly was nowhere near as good as it was the year before. And so part of that was an offensive coordinator change. Joe Lombardi did very well in his first year and then didn't do so well in his second year. And then, we look at other changes that unfortunately offenses have completely stagnated and needed to change. We saw a lot of rookie OCs last year. We're going to see even more rookie OCs this year. And the rookie OCs last year were definitely a mixed bag. You look at Liam Cohen at the Rams was borderline terrible. Not entirely his fault in terms of the fact that Matt Stafford goes down, but that offense was pretty putrid. And then you had offensive coordinators that weren't even offensive minded in Matt Patricia at New England, who's a defensive minded coach. So, so there's been a lot of change this offseason at OC. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Half the teams changed offensive coordinator this offseason, which is a lot. I didn't expect it to be that many when I was researching this, but yeah, there is.
That makes it pretty difficult to try and
Project
gain some. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it a little bit harder, but luckily some of these guys have coached before, so we have an idea what we're getting. Or they've all coached before, but some have coached in the NFL, some have coached at college, and we can glean some insights from there. And what we can do is we can look at some metrics from last season and see, does this change move the needle? Did it need to happen? Or if there was an offensive change that happened due to a hiring or a change like Eric Bieniemy, for example, and that Kansas City offense, and we'll get to that one in a minute. Is that in line for potential regression given how well it produced? Again, we'll get to that. So the point is, for fantasy football, there is something to be gleaned. Everything is about an edge. Not a lot of people talk about the offensive coordinator changes. I think a lot of this is important. I think some of this is a wash, but I think it's things just to be aware of, and it's information for you to take with it as well. So you mentioned Dallas, Kellen Moore, who I think had done an exceptional job as offensive coordinator. He has moved. We'll hear about where he's moved to later on. And Brian Schottenheimer has come in. Now, Brian Schottenheimer, as you mentioned, was an OC at the Jets. He was at the Rams. He was the Seahawks. He was actually a consultant for the Cowboys last year. So he was an internal appointment, but technically he was a consultant. He also worked with Mike McCarthy in the past. For me, Brian Schottenheimer, his last offensive coordinator job was at the Seahawks. He got fired for not running the ball enough. And he has this tag of being a OC who runs the ball too much. He's a very, very heavy run. And I've seen this trope all over. Like, Dallas is going to run the ball more in 2023. I don't buy that at all. I really don't. It is an absolute myth. He got fired from the Seahawks for not running the ball enough, which would seem weird for a guy who has got this reputation of running the ball too much. He gets that reputation because of his dad, Marty Schottenheimer, who heavily believed in running the ball. And they just, it's a lazy trope of, well, the son must be like the father. It's absolute nonsense. He runs a very balanced offense. So he's not run heavy. He's not pass heavy. It's very balanced. Also, he's not calling the plays. He is not going to call the plays in Dallas. Mike McCarthy is. This is a Mike McCarthy offense. We're going to see what we saw when he won the Super Bowl in Green Bay. You're going to see more of an air attack. You're going to see less on the ground in previous years, which is a bit of a shame because they were very efficient running the ball on the ground. The one thing I will say, and the one cause of concern here with this change, it is a Mike McCarthy offense. Brian Schottenheimer is going to be the official name, but he's not going to call the plays. He's going to do the game planning, the scheming, the designs, but Mike McCarthy's going to call the plays. This team was incredibly efficient in the red zone. I'm just looking. I've just got it here, and I'm going to keep looking down because I've got it on a smaller screen here. But in terms of red zone early down efficiency, passing, they were second in the NFL. Rush efficiency and earned points average, they were first. And third down earned points average, plays in field goal range, they were third. Third down conversion, they were fifth. Running pace of plays, which is just how many plays you get off, they were third in the league. I see regression in all those categories with Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer at the helm. I think they're going to run a more balanced offense, which I think you can also tell because they haven't bought in much at running back. They've let Zeke Elliott go, and they drafted a rookie very late on, who's 5'6", I believe.
I think he's shorter than that. Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn. He's like 5'6", 5'5". He's not very big. I mean, listen, he's doing all right in camp. I do think they do bring someone in. I've mentioned Leonard Fournette. I think that probably does happen. Tony Pollard's never carried a full workload. I don't think he's the workhorse that people are going to expect him to be. But I think he's highly efficient. I do think they're going to take some red zone efficiency. But I think, for me, I think I see an arrow up for someone like CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be interesting what they do with that second wide receiver. Is it going to be Brandon Cooks? Is it going to be Gallup? One of those guys is really going to eat this year. You'd back Gallup as the incumbent, but he has had injuries. Brandon Cooks has the experience. I'd expect one of those guys to really supersede, and I expect them to use the tight ends a bit more, like they did when McCarthy was taking charge. So, whether it's Jake Ferguson or whether it's Luke Schoonamaker, one of those guys is going to do quite well as well. So, I see more value in the wide receivers, and maybe I see Dak maybe a slight arrow up this year. I see Tony Pollard an arrow up just basically because he's going to get the ball more, not necessarily because I think that offense is going to do a lot more. But they were overly efficient, especially running the ball in for touchdowns. Both Elliott and Pollard both overachieved their touchdown totals by 4+ last year, according to my touchdown regression metrics. And that just shows you how efficient they were running the football in for touchdowns. I expect to see some negative regression there. So that's what I think of that. So I do think that if you're thinking about this offense, buy into CeeDee Lamb. You can buy in sneakily into Dak Prescott, but don't get too crazy. And you can buy into Pollard, but just be wary if they add another back. It's going to be more the same of what he did last year with a slight uptick as opposed to this heavy. I think he's overpriced where he is at ADP right now. I think he's a risk.
Fair enough. For those not watching on the video, as Murph was looking down to pick up all those stats, I can tell you, Murph, you have a very healthy head of hair up there. No loss going on whatsoever. Don't know the last time you had a vertical head check, but there it is, Rush Nation. You got it as well. Let's move on then. Washington, from Scott Turner to Super Bowl winning Eric Bieniemy. This has to be a better move, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, this offense has not been good for a couple of years. It's kind of been okay, but if we look at their efficiency metrics last year, they pretty much, the only metric they ranked in the top half of the league for was passing earned point averages in early down coverage in quarters 1 through 3, where they ranked 14th. Every other category, they were in the bottom half, and most of those categories, they were in the bottom 3, including early down pass rate success. They were last year. They were 26th in explosive plays, 25th in third down conversions, 24th in pace. So very, very slow offense. All this is going to change under Eric Bieniemy. They will be more explosive. They will run more plays. They'll be better on fourth down. They'll be better on third down. They will have better pass rate success. I would expect to see some improvements pretty much across the board. They're really poor at running the ball in the red zone, which is actually the one area that Eric Bieniemy didn't do very well last year. Ranked 25th, the Chiefs last year. In fact, they're below the Commanders last year, who were 24th. So, but on the whole, this should be a massive uptick here in terms of more creative play calling, certainly more vertical offense. I think you're going to see more explosive plays, as I mentioned. I think you're going to see Terry McLaurin do very well in this offense. It's all about who the second guy is going to be. Is it going to be Jahar Dotson, who I think is in line for huge touchdown regression based on his current usage? Or is it going to be finally...
Don't you dare.
I don't think it would happen. I'd go with Jahar Dotson. I think he's a sneaky ad in this offense, so I'm not even going to go there. I think he's the one I would take care of in this offense. But yeah, I think you got to look at this. Scott Turner did a I don't want to say a poor job. He had very limited things to work with, especially at quarterback. But they're very limited at quarterback this year. Sam Howell is what we assume will be the starter. Although they do have Jacoby Brissett there if that doesn't work out. And I think Brissett will be fine in that offense. I don't think he hurts the passing game too much or the rushing game. I just don't think he will be a huge asset. But I think that these players will do a lot better this year. And I think that offense will certainly be a lot better. And then depending on what they do at quarterback going forward, they'll be a lot better in 2024. So, yeah, I see a huge uptake here. But I think more plays, more vertical plays. Terry McLaurin here, I think, is the real winner in this as a player. I think gets a huge arrow up.
Mm-hmm. And Logan Thomas, that forgotten tight end.
Absolutely, I think he's a huge steal here. I think we see what Eric Bieniemy's done in the past with tight ends. Obviously Travis Kelce helps, but people forget that Logan Thomas 3 seasons ago, was a top 4 tight end. And then he had 2 years of horrific injuries. It's just not happened for him. So I do think that Logan Thomas is a very, very, very good late steal in drafts here. I definitely want a piece. And if not, and they've got a backup tight end in Turner who you should definitely grab should something happen to Logan Thomas when he's not available to start the season, because I do think they're going to use that more, especially with the lack of efficiency in the red zone. I do think they'll need, and Eric Bieniemy, as soon as possible, want that big body target to convert and improve their efficiency in the red zone.
Yep. I mean, it could be Carson Wentz at quarterback, or no, wait, that's the Eagles. I don't remember. Carson Wentz doesn't even remember because there's pictures of him in an Eagles helmet, Colts shorts, and a red Washington Commanders jersey throwing the ball at the moment. So, Lord only knows. Okay, Philadelphia. Shane Steichen to Brian Johnson, an internal appointment. What does this do for the Super Bowl runners-up?
Well, they were a heavily exciting and entertaining offense last year that ranked in the top 10 of every single category except for red zone passing earned points average efficiency, where they ranked 21st. Not a surprise, because whenever they got the ball down there, Jalen Hurts tended to run it in. So listen, Shane Steichen gets a head coaching job. So, he leaves because he's done an amazing job, and their offense last year was absolutely brilliant. And I think the good thing about having someone like Brian Johnson, now Brian Johnson, I remember very well. He was an offensive coordinator at Florida not that long ago. He actually coached Kyle Trask into his phenomenal senior year, where he was a borderline Heisman Trophy candidate. And you saw what he did with Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts. But he also coached Dak Prescott in college as an offensive coordinator. So he's an excellent QB coach. He's a very, very good. This is a great appointment for someone like Jalen Hurts. He's going to help develop and get the best out of Hurts even more. I think you're going to see a continuity. I would expect a very small arrow down, just because I think you've got a rookie OC. There's the pressures of being that offensive coordinator and calling plays. There's going to be things he's not seen before, but they're going to run the same offense, right? So the good thing about an internal appointment with someone who was handpicked by the predecessor, has been in that system for a couple of years, is he knows the playbook. There'll be some changes. So you're not going to see too much difference, but you have to change things year on year. And I think you'll see some slight rookie errors, which is to be expected. So I got them down as a slightly less efficient offense this year, but nothing you should really worry about. They're going to run a very similar style offense. You're not going to see anything go too crazy. Hurts is the big winner in this appointment more than anyone else. I do think AJ Brown takes an ever so slight dip. I think he gets a touchdown regression, negative regression bump, and I think that they're going to be slightly less efficient in the red zone and slightly less efficient on vertical plays, just from the nature of having a rookie OC. But I don't want to scare anyone. I don't think they're going to be, 50 times worse or anything like that. I just think they're going to I think there's going to be a small arrow down, maybe 5%, something like that.
Okay. Carolina have moved on from Ben McAdoo to Thomas Brown. He is a rookie OC, sorry, after being tight ends and running backs coach for the Rams. Just rookies all over the place in Carolina.
Yeah, well, you say that. I mean, they got Frank Reich, who I think was probably the best coaching appointment there, and they did bring some really experienced coaching staff in there. And I think with Thomas Brown, he's going to be a rookie OC, but he is going to be he's not going to be given the full range straight away. You know, Frank Reich is going to be part of this. They've got other offensive-minded coaches on that staff, so I see this being sort of a consensus run offense as opposed to Thomas Brown, and Thomas Brown might be the play caller. But listen, Carolina were pretty poor last year. Ben McAdoo, I don't have much to say about Ben McAdoo that's positive, so I'll move on. But I think what you'll see here, there's more talent there. They've got their franchise QB, so I think you're going to see mistakes, but I think you're going to see the big thing. I think with this appointment, I think Miles Sanders is going to carry a lot, especially early on. I think they're going to let Bryce Young settle. You've got Adam Thielen in there for experience. So I think they're going to be in a good spot, Carolina. I mean, you look at their offense last year, not terrible in sort of field goal range and rushing in the red zone. And fourth down conversion was surprisingly pretty good. They ran the ball well. A lot of that was down to Christian McCaffrey before he got traded. But actually, you know, they were very slow offense, 23rd in pace, 23rd in early down success rate, in early down first half pass rate success rate. They were 30th in passing earned points average in the first three quarters. They were 29th. In passing earned points average in the red zone, they were 31st. And a lot of that points to they didn't really have a quarterback last year. Bryce Young will give a natural elevation. I think Thomas Brown's remit here will be to try and get the ball going in the air. Adam Thielen will help with that as an experienced pass catcher. But I'd expect them early on probably to run a bit heavy, and then I expect to see more balance going forward. I expect maybe Bryce Young to get quite a few designed runs, especially just to get him used to the NFL as well.
Fire the cannons, Murf. Tampa have moved on from Byron Leftwich to Dave Canales. Tell me about this because I don't know who he is.
So Dave Canales has been in the league a long time, 12 years. He was with the Seahawks, wide receivers coach. Lastly, he was a quarterbacks coach. So he was the one who coached Geno Smith last year, who had an excellent year. To be honest, I pretty much would have taken anyone over Byron Leftwich. Byron Leftwich. I think Byron Leftwich was nicking the living at offensive coordinator. There is no doubt I could have done what he did. The big thing that you would expect here is a change. There'd just be more variation in the play calling. The play calling got so obvious. It got to the point when I was watching them in Germany last year, where I think myself and some friends managed to call 9 successive plays of what they were going to do in the rough yardage. That was kind of how bad it got. The Bucs would run the ball over 70% of the time on third down. They would pass the ball almost exclusively on third down. It was so predictable. This was a pretty poor offense last year. One of the worst in the NFL from just a rushing perspective. And keep in mind, they had Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White last year. These are some of the averages that they achieved. Yards per carry, 3.4. That ranked them last in the NFL last year. Yards before contact, 1.16. That ranked him 30th in the NFL. Yards after contact, 2.22. That ranked him last in the NFL. Earn point average for attempts between the tackles, minus 0.21. I ranked him 30th in the NFL. Earn point average for attempts outside the tackles, minus 0.16. That ranked him 30th in the NFL. Non-QB scramble success, 23 in the NFL. Points per average play for running efficiency, they were ranked 22nd at minus 0.04. You want a positive number there, so that was pretty poor. And then he ranked in the top half of one one category, which was early down success, 41%. But that's because they ran the ball so many times for first down, it was almost impossible to not achieve that. In fact, it's actually quite surprising that they did rank as high as they did, because the offensive line, the defensive line, the other team must have known they were running the ball. Yeah, they were pretty poor everywhere across the board on offense. Very, very poor in the red zone. Very, very inefficient. The only category they really excelled in, there were two categories last year they excelled in. One was surprisingly red zone passing points average. That's due to Tom Brady. That's not happening this year, regardless of who comes in. And they actually ran the most plays in the NFL for pace. So you'll see some regression there. But Dave Canales will bring in some difference. I think people are really down on this offense because people see that Tom Brady's gone. And as a result of Tom Brady going, there's less optimism because the quarterback's either going to be Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. I still think it should be Kyle Trask. I still believe people kind of laughed when I said that he had a chance of winning this job. He's going to have every chance to win this job. And I with the way that camp's gone, he's probably winning the race right now. I still think they'll probably give it to Baker if it's not a fair competition. But if it was a completely fair, judged on merit competition, I think Kyle Trask will probably win it. This offense will be different. It'll be slightly more exciting. You've got great weapons there. Rashad White is going to be in for a big year. He's going to be much better than he was last year. Second year, better offense. Coming from he wasn't an offensive coordinator, but he came from an offense that's very good at running the football and knows how to run the football in Seattle. So Dave Canales would have absorbed a lot of that, would be bringing some of that in to help Rashad White be better. And then you've got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and Russell Gage. It's a pretty good three. If they can get a quarterback who can get the ball into their hands, this offense will be a lot better. It's already got a pretty stout defense. I think a lot of people are very down on the Buccaneers this year. We don't know who the quarterback is. That could change things. But I think if they went with Kyle Trask, I think they're a playoff team. I really do. I think there's enough there, especially with the D. I think there's enough there. But that offense, I think, would be cooking. I just worry if it's Baker Mayfield. Does he check down too much? Does he follow instructions enough to bring the dynamism that this offense needs? Whereas with Kyle Trask, we've seen it. He's got the arm, he's got the talent, and he doesn't play with that sort of fear. So we'll see what happens. But I think the lesson here is don't be down on the Buccaneers. And it's hard, and people are going to go, well, you're a homer, you're going to be optimistic. Byron Leftwich was just bad. He was just a bad offensive coordinator. He was, and I know he won a Super Bowl, but he didn't really win it. Tom Brady won that Super Bowl on offense, and the defense won it. Byron Leftwich fluked it. He absolutely fluked it. And he basically let Tom Brady call what play he wanted to call. And it was only when Tom Brady stopped getting that sort of power in the final season, and Byron Leftwich says, I'm going to run the offense I'm going to run, that things didn't go well. And that's purely what happened. So I'm just glad. I'm glad Byron's gone. I celebrated his sacking. You shouldn't really, but he was terrible. Nice guy, just terrible offensive coordinator. I'm glad he's gone, and we can move on to an offense that definitely isn't that exciting to watch this year.
So Arizona, as you mentioned, we've moved on from Cliff Kingsbury, who didn't have an offensive coordinator, to Drew Petzing, rookie OC, former Browns and Vikings offensive assistant.
I don't have too much on Drew Petzing. You'll be surprised to hear. I don't know too much about him. Again, rookie OC. You know that he's run plays. He's worked with Gannon before, which is why he's been picked for this. And really, you're relying on Jonathan Gannon to be the orchestrator of this offense. And Petzing is kind of getting this job. I don't know if he's going to call the plays. He might do. He might not. Now, Cliff Kingsbury didn't have an offensive coordinator for 3 years in Arizona. So that's why we mentioned Cliff Kingsbury and not an offensive coordinator, because there wasn't one. Cliff Kingsbury called all the plays, and he refused to hire an offensive coordinator, full stop. Very nice of him to save some wages. I'm sure he got that very nicely in his payoff. I think this offense is a massive arrow down. Cliff Kingsbury, for all of his faults, did run a pretty exciting offense most of the time. It's a pretty talent-poor roster. You've got Kyler Murray, who's going to be out for 1 to 6 games, maybe, depending on that injury. So you're going to have Colt McCoy or Clayton Tune throwing the ball. You've got Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore as your wide receivers, who aren't bad, but let's be honest, there's not an elite one there. I know Marquise Brown was a former first-round pick, but it was only taken for his speed. And when you're getting balls from Colt McCoy or Clayton Tune, no disrespect to either of them, you can't imagine there's going to be that much over the top vertical offense going on here. And then you got James Conner, who I love James Conner, but doesn't stay fit. So I just worry about, and then you've got Zach Ertz, who is on pup, probably not going to make the start of the season. So you got Trey McBride. I like Trey McBride. I actually think he's in line for some big work this year, especially early on, and especially if Colt McCoy is the quarterback. I think for me, I worry about their diversity at wide receiver. Obviously, getting rid of Hopkins, huge loss. You can't replace Luke Hopkins, so there's nothing too much. And I know Paul's going to listen to this, Paul Picken, and I know he's not going to be too happy with me. I just don't think there's too much to get excited about this year. I think it's a rebuild year. I hope they give Jonathan Gannon, I almost said Rich Gannon, former NFL MVP. I think if they give Jonathan Gannon time, I think they'll be fine. I like the appointment. I don't dislike the appointment of Jonathan Gannon. There's no slate on him. I don't know much about Petzing to really judge him, but I think Kyler Murray is a value in drafts for his position and where he's going off boards. And I like Rondale Moore. I think he's someone, again, probably is quite a good value in drafts. And Trey McBride is a certain value in drafts. But I think other than that, I'm not touching them with the expectation of they're going to be absolute lightning in the bottle. I just think they have the potential to outperform their ADP because their ADP is so low, because almost everyone universally is out on the Arizona offense this year. And with good reason.
Yeah. Talent poor, as you say. We've already mentioned Los Angeles Rams and how they were bad last year. They're moving on from Liam Cohen to Mike LaFleur, who was formerly the Jets OC. This has to be an uptick after the drivel we watched last year from the Rams.
I mean, this offense was putrid, and a lot of that was Matt Stafford going down.
And Cooper Kupp.
And Cooper Kupp, yeah. I don't even mention him, but yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to find them on my chart here. Yeah, I mean, this offense ranked bottom half of every category except fourth down conversion, where they led the league. And that's because they couldn't do anything on the first three downs. This league was
desperation.
Now, keep in mind about the offensive genius of their head coach, and you think about all the things we've had to listen to over the years about how ingenious their offense is and everything they do. They were 30th in pace last year, which is just tells you everything you need to know. 27th in explosive plays, 26th in early down success. I mean, this offense was just bad. It was bad in the red zone. It was just bad everywhere. They, like I said, really only fourth down conversion because they weren't getting anywhere, and they were bang average in earn points average in plays in field goal range. That was it. Everything else was pretty poor. Running the football, again, tells a very, very similar story. Yards after contact, 29th in the league, 2.55. Yards before contact, 20th, 1.49. Yards per carry, 4 even, flat, so 27th in the league. Non-scramble QB success rate, 36.1, 27%. Early down success rate, 38.4, 23%. Didn't run the ball well, didn't pass the ball well. Expect more pace, more tempo. Expect them to be more pass-heavy. Mike LaFleur comes in, former Jets offensive coordinator, younger brother of Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Packers. So, yeah, I'd expect them to be more vertical. Expect them to use Cooper Kupp as much as possible. Van Jefferson is a sneaky value. I think he's going to get involved a bit more than people probably give him credit for. And I expect him to run the ball better as well. I just think it's a huge arrow up. I think Liam Cohen didn't have a lot to work with last year, a lot of injuries, but was pretty poor. And Sean McVay is not going to tolerate that for another year. Absolutely not.
Talking to somebody who doesn't really do much tolerating, Bill Belichick at New England, they're moving on from the defensive-minded Pat Patricia offensive coordinator to Bill O'Brien, who is an absolute weapon at offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's, as offensive coordinators go, you're not doing better than Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was a very successful head coach at the Houston Texans before it all kind of fell apart at the end, but I think the Texans would take him back in a heartbeat compared to what we've seen since his departure. Was a previous offensive coordinator at New England, has worked with Belichick before, so this isn't like this is a new marriage and how are they going to get on. They know how to work together. They've worked together very well and worked together very successfully. Matt Patricia, as I mentioned, defensive-minded coach. This offense showed real signs of life in 2021 with Mac Jones as a rookie. Was putrid, awful in 2022. I expect them to be a lot better in 2023. I think they're going to be, again, I think you're looking at what they can offer. Just some of the key metrics here. I'm not going to keep banging on about metrics all the time. 20th in pace, 29th in fourth down conversion, 27th in third down conversion. Just overall, 28th in early down success rate, which is the Bill Belichick way of he's not going to want to be down there. He's going to want to be a much higher up. 31st in early down red zone rushes, points average. So pretty poor in the red zone. In fact, all across the board, we're terrible in the red zone. So they'll be a lot better. There'll be a better passing game for Mac Jones. They've got Juju Smith-Schuster now. They'll use the foundation of Ramondre Stevenson. I still think they'll bring in, and you could see Leonard Fournette pop up here, by the way. It's another team that, if he doesn't go to Dallas, it's another team that could be very interested in him. I think you're going to get a complimentary back to Stevenson, but I think Stevenson is definitely going to be that foundation runner who's going to have the opportunity to get 1,500 yards potentially across the season. But they're going to be more dynamic and they're going to be a much more potent offense in 2023 for sure.
We've already talked about the Jets and Hard Knocks and stuff, and they've added Nathaniel Hackett replacing Mike LaFleur. Basically, somebody Aaron Rodgers wanted and they went and got him.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not Aaron Rodgers' biggest fan, but you bring in a offensive coordinator who you're very successful with. He won 2 MVPs under Nathaniel Hackett's play calling. So I think at the time, Aaron Rodgers, when Nathaniel Hackett went to Denver, I think he put a call in as a character reference for Nathaniel Hackett. These two are very, very close. And if you've got your old offensive coordinator on the market and he's free, I totally do understand. And your offensive coordinator that you're inheriting has moved to LA. It's one of those hires that just makes a huge amount of sense. Like it honestly, I do get it. It makes complete sense. As I said, Rodgers won 2 MVPs back to back before last year when, funny enough, Hackett wasn't there. I just expect the former Green Bay Packers playbook from 2019 to 21 be installed here. So you're going to see a lot of running on the ground. So good news for Breece Hall if he's fit, and maybe they bring in a second runner, which I do expect, and I expect to be Dalvin Cook potentially. But I think you'll see Rodgers improve slightly from a play call he's familiar with. And I think it's good news for Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard. I think they'll both do well. Don't worry about the tight end here, not relevant. Wasn't relevant in Green Bay, not going to be relevant here. But yeah, I think Breece Hall, if fit, is definitely a huge winner here with this OC call-up. I think Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't draft him in a 1 QB league, but he's going to be fine in a 2 QB league. And he's going to be fine in as a backup for your bye weeks for sure. But yeah, I think Garrett Wilson benefits and Alan Lazard does too, because he's not going to need much time to get up and running.
Okay, let's move to Baltimore, where they've gone from Greg Roman to Todd Monken, formerly Georgia Bulldogs and Tampa Bay offensive coach. Murph, you are very aware of this guy's resume. What does this do for Lamar and company?
I think it's a fantastic appointment. I'd argue this is probably the best offensive coordinator appointment a lot. I think Todd Monken is incredibly underrated. Todd Monken, you're going to see a much more dynamic. Greg Roman ran a very, very stale offense from someone who run the same offense in quite a while. They kind of built the offense around Lamar. It was good to see some dynamism early on, but then it got a bit stale. Basically trying to use vertical receivers, the running game, and letting Lamar just do what Lamar does. And then when Lamar's not 100%, he's injured, it got a bit predictable down the stretch. They ran just some key numbers here. 26th, they were in pace, 26th on fourth down conversion. They just weren't weren't massively explosive either. 11th and third down conversions is not too bad. But yeah, the bottom line is they were just a kind of very average 17th in early down success rate. They were just a very average offense. What Todd Monken's going to do, he's going to give the confidence to Lamar Jackson. He's going to get more out of the passing game. You're going to see Lamar Jackson break 3,000 passing yards, which doesn't sound like a lot, but given how much he gives you on the ground, It's quite significant. I think he's going to be closer to 3,500 rushing yards. Typically hovers around about that 2,900 mark. So I think you're going to see an extra 500-600 yards out of Lamar Jackson this year. You're going to see slightly more spread air raid offense. That's why they've got Odell Beckham Jr. in there. You've got Rashard Bateman is back and healthy. Now he's off the pup. I think you're going to see this vertical shots being taken, but you're going to see this more spread attack. Lamar will throw the ball more, but you'll see Lamar still making Lamar plays that we all want to see. And you should see a more efficient run game as well this year. So I'm really excited for Baltimore. I'm excited to watch them. I think they're going to be a really, really fun team to watch under Todd Monken this year.
Yes, agreed. So
and you're going to see a lot of explosive pace.
Well, fingers crossed. That would be good for Lamar and company. There's a list now, Murph, of single sentences on the show doc. Shall I run through them all and you can talk about them individually, or do you want to just talk about them individually as we go?
I mean, I've got probably one or two lines on. I don't think some of these are, and no disrespect to the final 6 teams here. Maybe the Chargers is interesting. I'll probably talk a little bit about the Chargers, but the rest are sort of just zip through quite quickly. So
okay.
I'll just do sort of one. You'll talk about it. I'll bring in one or two lines. And that'll be it.
Super. So Houston have gone from Pep Hamilton to Bobby Slovic, who's a rookie OC and had assistant jobs with the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Slowick at all, other than the fact he's been under Shanahan. So you'd expect there to be some increase in play calling ability there. But ultimately, they're a very talent-poor organization. I expect CJ Stroud to do well, not draftable in one QB league, but expect him to be a good asset as a quarterback this year. I expect Robert Woods to be good, and I expect Damian Pierce to be exceptional. That's kind of all I'd really want from this offense. And Dalton Schultz, I think you'll see Dalton Schultz get a fair bit of work here, just from Slowick and the reputation he'll have for the 49ers of using a tight end. But that's really all I got to say. It's not an offense that's going to be particularly exciting. They're probably going to be ranked in the bottom third, and that's more down to talent than coaching. Okay,
so the Colts have gone from Marcus Brady to Jim Bob Cooter. Now that feels like a name you should say in an American twang, but I haven't. Not disrespectful.
I mean, Jim Bob Cooter has been around the league for a long time. Lions, OC, I think he was last there. Very experienced, exactly what you want when you are Shane Steichen and you're a rookie head coach. You want to bring in some. I like the fact that Shane Steichen has brought in experienced coordinators. I really like that. I think that shows maturity of wanting to really do well. I think it's going to be a tough year for Indianapolis. You've got Anthony Richardson, who I think is the rawest prospect of all the quarterbacks. He's going to need the year to get acclimatized to the NFL. Michael Pittman is going to be the one wide receiver you'll probably want to get some assets from, but he's a slight risk depending on how we see Anthony Richardson get on. And then you've got all the drama that's going on right now with Jonathan Taylor. I think he plays. I think he stays, but he could not. And if he doesn't, then then Lord help Indianapolis and wheels up Deion Jackson and
they got a rookie, haven't they? Evan Hull is Evan Hull?
He's a bit further behind. But the two you're looking at there are not Marlon Mack. It's the one I always get confused with Marlon Mack. Oh, it's so annoying.
I don't know, Murph.
I always get the names confused.
Not the fellow who had the jet ski accident. Was he a Bills running back?
He was the Bills running back. I'll tell you now.
Okay.
Zach Moss.
No, Zach Moss. Isn't Zach Moss out for the season?
Is he out for the season?
I think Zach Moss is out for the season. Rush Nation, if you jump into the comments and let us know, that would save us some killer audio right now. I'm pretty sure Zach Moss is out for the season.
I know he's injured.
I could be well wrong. All I know is that I've drafted
he's got a broken arm. He's out 4 to 6 weeks.
I mean, that sounds horrendous.
So that was a week ago. So he'll miss probably he'll probably miss 2 weeks of the season, maybe 3. But yeah, with broken arms. So Deion Jackson, that's your guy.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. moving on. Tennessee, Todd Downing to Tim Kelly. It's an internal promotion. Was Tennessee's passing game coordinator and previous OC in Houston in 19 and 21.
Yeah, Todd Downing was pretty terrible. Tim Kelly, offensive coordinator in Houston for those 2 seasons are probably nothing to overly shout about too much. 19 was probably not too bad. 21 was pretty atrocious. Listen, he can't be any worse than Todd Downing. Ultimately, passing game coordinator, which was the one area they weren't completely terrible in, but they've got Nuke Hopkins this year. You've got Treylon Burks. The good thing about having a guy who's responsible for passing game coaching is he's more likely to invest time in the passing game. So it isn't just going to be the Derrick Henry offense. So expect an hour up from guys like Ryan Tannehill this year. And I expect Nuke Hopkins to be valuable. And I expect there'll be some sneaky value in Treylon Burks. And then you've got your tight end there, Chick, who could be interesting as well. So expect the passing game to get a slight arrow up from Todd Downing and his awful play calling last year.
Yeah, moving on to the Broncos. They have moved on from Jason. I don't even know how to say his name. Jason Witten? Jason Uten?
Uten.
Justin Uten to Joe Lombardi, former Chargers OC. Good move, I think.
I don't have a lot of love for Joe Lombardi. I think he's a pretty abject play caller. But the one thing I would say is it's a Sean Payton offense. Sean Payton's going to run the show. Joe Lombardi's worked with Sean Payton before. They've been pretty successful together before. So I think if it was anyone else but Sean Payton, I'd really hate this. Instead, I'm just kind of a bit meh. I think it's fine. But I think Sean Payton brings a lot more life to this offense. I think you're going to see Russell Wilson bounce back. I think if Jerry Jeudy is still there, I think he's going to bounce back. I think Courtland Sutton's going to do quite well as well. And I think you'll see a balanced attack. You're going to see Javonte Williams and Samari P. Ryan balanced attack and balance it very, very well. Indeed, they certainly aren't going to be much. They're certainly not going to be like last year. They're going to be a lot more efficient. They're going to be a better offense to watch. Third down conversion last in the NFL last year. And across the board, they ranked in the bottom 4 in most metrics for offensive efficiency. I think you might see pace go down slightly. They were 12 last year, but I think you're going to see better quality of offense this year.
So the Chiefs, as we mentioned, have moved on from Eric Bieniemy to Matt Nagy, who was a former Bears head coach and Chiefs OC. Was he also Chiefs quarterback coordinator or something like that, Murph?
Yeah, I think he had that role as well before he became the Chiefs offensive coordinator and then left that to go and be the Bears head coach. And that promoted Eric Bieniemy. And now Bieniemy's gone. Matt Nagy gets his old job back. It's amazing how the NFL kind of all goes around in a full circle. Again, it's an Andy Reid offense. Andy Reid takes huge control of it. He does give autonomy to his OCs to a certain degree, and you're certainly going to see Matt Nagy take stamp. The fact that he's been in this offense before means he shouldn't need too much. I think you're going to see some change in it. He definitely hasn't coached Patrick Mahomes before, so that's something. This offense last year, right? I'm just going to read out their efficiency rankings. Early down success rate first. First half early down pass rate first. Early down quarters 1 through 3 passes points average first. Rush EPA same time frame 7th. End zone pass earn points average 5th. Rush 25th talked about already was the only category they marked down on. Down set conversion percentage first. Explosive plays second. Third down conversion percentage second. Fourth down conversion percentage second in the league. Pace 10th. I mean, there's nowhere to go but down on most of those categories. So again, small arrow down, but nothing to worry about. You're still taking all the Chiefs players in your drafts, and rightfully so. The big question is who is going to be the wide receiver that benefits. Kind of hard to tell. I like Sky Moore in a Matt Nagy offense / Andy Reid offense, but I also like Rashee Rice. He's got the draft capital.
Okay, the one you want to talk about, the Chargers from Joe Lombardi to Kellen Moore. Goodness gracious me.
Yeah, I've already mentioned I'm not a big fan of Lombardi. Ran a pretty abject. The good thing about Lombardi is he ran pace. So quite a quick offense. He was 4th in pace. We've already seen Dallas's metric there was that level again. They were 3rd. So that's not going to get a drop off. So that's the one good thing is they've got a coach that's going to keep that high tempo, maybe even slightly more high tempo, which is really, really good. What you're going to see here is better efficiency in the red zone. You're going to see better efficiency from Austin Eckler. I mean, he was very efficient last year, but potentially even more so in the red zone. But more importantly, I think this frees up Justin Herbert to bounce back in 2023. And I also expect Keenan Allen to do well. Keep an eye on Quentin Johnston. I just think with Mike Williams and his injury history, Quentin Johnston could end up leading the rookies in receiving yards this year. That's a sneaky hunch I have. I think Kellen Moore is going to bring some positivity to this attack. And again, as proven over the years, he can be very highly efficient in the red zone. So expect the Chargers to score lots of touchdowns this year.
I love that take. Right, Murph.
On a positive note.
We finally made it. We're over 3 hours in. It's time to summarize the last 3 podcasts in 42 seconds. No, I'm joking. Yeah, hit us with a summary for the last 3 podcasts and what we need to learn from all that's been ahead.
Yeah, and we're going to move on. We'll draw a line under it. First of all, got some great comments on the vertical board and horizontal board stuff. Hopefully, we'll cut that and do that as a separate video that people can watch and just go through that mock draft. People found that really useful. So that's really the first main takeaway. Go back and watch that if you haven't seen it, and go watch it on the video, the vertical board versus horizontal board, about using your tiers. And I explain it in good detail there. It's about half an hour long, but definitely make the most of it. So for me, this kind of is a no-brainer, but look at ascending quarterbacks, not descending quarterbacks. So for me, I'm not really interested in players like Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, or Derek Carr for fantasy football. I think Russell Wilson potentially carries some risk given where he was last year. Instead, I'd rather go for the younger QBs or the QBs that are on the rise. A lot of these QBs are going to get drafted on name reputation. Try and avoid that where possible. Target younger running backs and running back by committee pieces look far better than they are. You're not going to see Jamal Williams this season again for a very, very long time, if ever. And don't worry about a running back by committee when there's a young stud involved. We saw this last year. Everyone was worried about Michael Carter, Breece Hall. Talent will always prevail through. Breece Hall, when he got the job, just basically ran away with it. Michael Carter was not a thing. So when you've got a Jamar Gibbs, when you've got a Bijan Robinson, they should, with their draft capital, they should just completely obliterate the committee dead. So Gibbs, I'm slightly cautious. I didn't have a high grade on him, so maybe there's a bit of personal bias there. But I wouldn't be too worried about the running back by committee pieces when you've got those young studs in place and absolutely smashing it. So age is really important. Taking 27, 28-year-old running backs, 29-year-old running backs is a recipe for disaster. So don't do that too often. But if you're getting good value like you are on Alvin Kamara, then as your running back 4, then makes sense. Wide receivers look safe, but can also be too safe as a position. So pay attention to teams who don't use a third wide receiver. So Seattle, Las Vegas, people are going to be really excited about JSN. Their usage as a team doesn't support 3 wide receivers. So JSN, I think, is in for a bedding in year. People are going to say, Tyler Lockett's going to get the heave-ho because he's not under contract next year. Completely different wide receivers play completely different roles. So not going to happen. Tyler Lockett's going to get plenty this year. Las Vegas as well, after Jacoby Myers. I think Hunter Renfrow, if you're looking at him in drafts, just don't. Just skip him. He's not going to get any work. He's not going to get enough work to be relevant. So and the other thing to be cautious of here is once you get to wide receiver 20 or so, the position completely plateaus. You're talking about such small, narrow gains. I talked about this on the Patreon cast. If you want to listen to that, subscribe to the Patreon from a minimum of £1 a month, and you can get access to that and access to our WhatsApp chat where it's very active and going off in there all the time. I would say, wide receiver just plateaus completely. So just, be a bit careful. If we don't like an offensive, and this is what we just spent ages talking about, if we don't like an offensive system or coach, we should probably dial into that a bit more and really focus in on it. So for me, Byron Leftwich, although my blinkers kind of got in the way there, was a good example in 2022. Joe Lombardi was another one with the Chargers. These are coaches that if we don't think they're great offensive coordinators, why are we buying into them? So again, going back to what we've got this year, no offense to Drew Petzing, but that's probably one I'd be a bit wary about. I'd be slightly worried about Brian Schottenheimer a little bit, but I mean he is proven. Be worried about Joe Lombardi in Denver, but then I do think Sean Payton can overcome that one. But the most, and then Houston we've talked about. So just buy it. Just be a bit careful there, and just if you don't like the offensive quality, you don't like the system, just walk away from it. This is a really interesting one. So there for me is less information that's good from beat writers than there ever has been before. So for me, beat writers used to be phenomenal. And I remember when we first started this show, I was like, follow all the beat writers from all the teams on Twitter and you'll get all this great insight. It's worse than ever. They're not really breaking news anymore. There used to be the time when you used to get these local beat writers, and there is exceptions. Rick Stroud, who's a friend of mine at the Tampa Bay Times, he does break national news, but he's a rarity. He's been on the beat a long time. A lot of these beat writers are quite new. They're still earning their crust. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as it was 5 years ago. Really, you're getting all your information from Rap Sheet or Adam Schefter. That's realistically where you're getting from. That points to me that teams are clearly hiding more than they ever have done before and aren't talking to the beat writers as much. And it could also mean that beat writers maybe just aren't as good. I don't know. Ultimately, I think if you're relying on just beat writer information, you've got to be a little bit careful of what's coming out there and maybe don't trust absolutely everything from the beat writers because they could be misled by the teams. Discounts are possible by going against consensus. People were heavily out on Tyler Lockett last year and DK Metcalf because of Geno Smith. People were massively out on Josh Jacobs. I wasn't. He helped me out in a lot of leagues. This year, people are massively out on Deontay Johnson. I'm telling you now, Deontay Johnson is due massive touchdown, positive regression. He's not going to score 0 touchdowns again this year. It's not possible. It's just not going to happen. Chris Godwin, people are out on the quarterback situation we talked about. I think he's in a much better offensive situation people give him credit for. Joe Mixon is another one that people have been out on because there's worry about ban and his age. But I also think he's another one that you can potentially buy quite cheap below where he's going in drafts right now. Don't forget he was the RB4 last year in most formats. So I'm not saying he's going to necessarily repeat that, but I think you can get him at like the RB18 right now in some drafts. That's too low.
Very cheap.
I like the value you get on Joe Mixon. So some people have been taking him well above that. And I've seen in drafts, I've been waiting for him to fall to RB17, 18. And he's been taken around RB12, 13. And people are buying him at still, I think, is a value at that price. So totally get it. I'm not screwing anyone there for saying that they're taking him above his ADP. I think you should. I think definitely take a flyer on these guys. I keep saying, and this goes back to the fundamental point, consensus is wrong quite frequently, and especially when people talk into a consensus, they talk into a groupthink. They tend to put blinkers on and get blinded and go into a bit of an auto draft, and then people just follow the consensus. And and this is what basically the last 3.5 hours has been about. Go against the consensus a little bit, push the boundaries, and find an edge. Because if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're probably not going to win. And if you do, it's probably based on luck more than skill. And I think that's the fundamental message. If I could say one way in the last 3.5 hours to sum it up, that would probably be it.
I was just going to say, Murph, if you are listening to this pod and you don't really know what we're talking about, go back and listen to the last 2 podcasts, because these are essentially a trilogy of podcasts that we've put together to help you go against that groupthink consensus thinking slightly in order to get value and discounts where possible. So if you are listening to this for the first time, it's only taken me an hour and 14 minutes. Welcome to 5 Yard Rush. My name's Stocks and that's Murph, as you know from the beginning of the show. But do go back and listen to the last 2 podcasts because they are important and they all work together in a succinct fashion. So it is worth heading back and listening to those. And like Murph said, if you want to watch the video that hopefully we're going to get out soon on the horizontal and vertical boards, that was, I really, really enjoyed that. And I know a few of the staff did as well. So if we did, then surely you guys will too. Murph, anything else before we dash off for this evening's pod?
No, I hope you enjoyed it. Good to have as much feedback as possible. As I mentioned, feel free to join the Patreon. There is a live, there's a chat in there. You get access to me and questions. I'll review teams, talk about picks when you're on the clock if I see the chat. I just prefer WhatsApp to Discord, so I don't do Discord all that much. What else is there? Loads of articles I've written coming on the site. Touchdown regression week next week. So if you want to read about running back and wide receiver touchdown, positive and negative regression, there's 4 articles dropping on the site next week. I've dropped this week tiers explainer, explaining how to exploit and go around tiers, ADP value, and how to make the most of that. I think drops tomorrow. One of those dropped on Wednesday, one of them dropped today. And I wrote, so there's lots of content I've put up on the site. It's going to be dropping over the next couple of weeks. And then one last thing on Wednesday next week, and I've got about 4 dates, and you can hit me up. I'm taking over the Fantasy Pros mock draft. They're having some mock draft days in their Discord channel, and I don't do Discord, so this is going to be a new experience for me. But I'll be running some Fantasy Pros sponsored mock draft, so you can draft against me in a mock, and we'll chat in the Discord and we'll have a laugh as we do that. I'll post the times on Twitter, so just follow the Twitter at Murf_NFL. But they're going to be sort of like early afternoonish if you're around early afternoon. There's 4 dates, 4 mock drafts I'll be doing. So
nice.
Feel free to check me out on that. And that's about it. Lots of listener leagues going off right now. Lots of drafts going on right now, but it's good fun.
Shout out to my FFCC crew. We're not too far away. If not done, we're not quite done. I know we're not done, but Murph, which division got done first? Was it the hardcore 5-yard one that got done first? Surely it was.
No,
right?
that was third or second. Second, I think it was. That
was crazy because we started so hot as well and we dropped off. That was
Division 21 finished first. They were the first ones. They had a good group of mix all over the world. So people tell me it's impossible to have people from all over the world draft. They had people from like Norway, the UK, East Coast, West Coast. Joe Pisapia was in there. Good draft, some good people in there. Did quite well.
And they got done fast.
Ours one was second. There's only 3, I think, that are done. There's about 4 that are very tantalizingly close. I'm going to see if
come on, Division 18. Let's bring home that bacon.
Division 18 is you're currently on pick 22-11. So you got 2 and a bit rounds. So you're not finishing today.
No, we're not. We've been slow the last couple of days, but we've had some chat stuff, so it's been good. That's it for today, Rush Nation. As Murph said, follow Murph on Twitter at Murph_NFL. Follow the podcast at 5-Yard Rush. Head over to Patreon. Support the podcast for as little as $1, one credit.
Pound.
1 Imperial credit a month.
I think it's £1 plus tax.
Okay, but it really isn't a lot. And as Murph said, there is a WhatsApp. And that's going to do it for this week, Rush Nation. As always, don't forget, keep rushing.